There comes a moment in every life when the world grows loud with opinions, doubts, and expectations. And in that noise, we begin to forget the sound of our own voice. We look outward for approval, for permission, for someone to tell us that we are enough, while the truth waits patiently within us. Believing in yourself is not arrogance, and it is not blind confidence. It is a quiet decision to trust the strength that has carried you through storms you never thought you would survive. The first step toward an unstoppable life is not found in perfection or applause. It is born in the courage to stand in your truth, to honor your journey, and to say, even with trembling faith, I am worthy and I will rise. Believing in yourself begins in the quiet moments when no one is watching and no one is clapping. It is born in the silence after disappointment, in the stillness of early mornings and late nights when your dreams sit beside you like unanswered prayers. In those moments, there is no audience to impress, no applause to lean on, only your own heart asking whether you will stand by it. Self-belief is not loud or boastful. It is a soft promise you make to yourself to keep going, even when the path feels lonely and the outcome uncertain. So many people wait for confidence to arrive like a visitor, thinking one day they will wake up fearless and sure. But belief does not arrive fully formed. It grows through choosing yourself again and again. It grows when you rise after falling, when you speak kindly to yourself after failure, when you refuse to let one mistake define your entire worth. Every time you choose to try again, even with shaking hands, you are teaching yourself that you can be trusted. The world will offer you reasons to doubt yourself. It will remind you of where you come from, what you lack, and how many times you have been overlooked. Yet believing in yourself is an act of defiance against every voice that told you that you were too much or not enough. It is saying, I see my flaws, and I still choose myself. It is understanding that your value is not measured by success alone, but by the courage it takes to keep showing up. An unstoppable life is not a life without fear. It is a life where fear no longer makes the decisions. When you believe in yourself, fear becomes a companion, not a ruler. You move forward with it, not because you are certain of the outcome, but because you are certain of your ability to endure, to learn, and to rise again. This belief turns hesitation into movement and doubt into determination. There will be days when your belief feels thin, when the weight of the past feels heavier than the hope of tomorrow. On those days, remember every obstacle you have already survived. Remember the strength that carried you through moments you once thought would break you. You are not standing here by accident. You are standing here because something within you refused to give up. Believing in yourself is the first step toward an unstoppable life because it changes how you walk through the world. Your steps become steadier, your voice clearer, your spirit less willing to shrink. You stop asking the world who you are and start answering that question for yourself. And when you do, you don't just move forward. You rise, carrying your story with grace, power, and an unshakable sense of purpose. Self-belief is an act of courage when the world has taught you to doubt your own worth. It takes bravery to stand upright in a place that keeps trying to bend you, to look into a mirror shaped by criticism and still recognize your own light. From an early age, many are taught to measure themselves by comparison, by approval, by standards that shift like sand. Yet believing in yourself means choosing not to disappear just because the world failed to see you clearly. It is the decision to honor your existence even when affirmation feels distant. There are wounds that come not from failure, but from being told you are invisible, replaceable, or undeserving. Those wounds can teach silence, can convince a soul to shrink for the comfort of others. But self-belief rises from those very places of pain. It says, I may have been doubted, but I am not defined by doubt. It understands that worth is not something earned through suffering. It is something you are born carrying, quietly and completely. When you believe in yourself, you stop waiting for the world to apologize. You stop asking broken systems and wounded people to tell you who you are allowed to be. Instead, you begin to listen inward to that steady voice that has survived every dismissal and every delay. That voice reminds you that you are still here, still breathing, still capable of growth. And survival, when chosen with intention, becomes strength. Courage does not always look like boldness. Sometimes it looks like gentleness with yourself after years of harshness. Sometimes it looks like resting without guilt, speaking without fear, dreaming without asking if it is too much. Self-belief allows you to take up space without apology. It teaches you that you do not need to become someone else to be worthy of love, respect, or joy. The world may never fully understand your journey, and that is not a failure on your part. Your life has unfolded in ways that required resilience, patience, and grace that cannot always be explained. Believing in yourself means trusting that your path, though different, is still sacred. It means walking forward even when the road is unfamiliar, guided by faith in your ability to adapt, to learn, and to rise. An unstoppable life is built one brave choice at a time. Each time you choose yourself over self-doubt, each time you speak your truth instead of swallowing it, you strengthen that belief. Over time, it becomes a foundation no criticism can shake. And one day, you will realize that the courage you were searching for has been living inside you all along, waiting for you to finally say, I believe in myself, and that is enough. When you believe in yourself, your voice grows louder than fear, not because fear disappears, but because it finally loses its authority. Fear has always been a skilled storyteller, whispering reminders of past failures, imagined futures, and all the ways you might fall short. For a long time, you may have listened, thinking fear was wisdom, but self-belief teaches you to listen differently. It teaches you that fear speaks from protection, while your voice speaks from truth. And truth, once honored, carries a strength fear cannot silence. Your voice is not only the sound that leaves your mouth, it is the way you choose, the way you stand, the way you refuse to shrink. There was a time when you may have swallowed your words to keep peace, dimmed your light to fit small spaces, or doubted your instincts because others questioned them. But believing in yourself awakens a deeper sound within you, a steady rhythm that says, I know who I am and I will not abandon myself. That sound grows with every honest step you take. Fear often asks, what if you fail? Self-belief answers, what if I grow? This shift changes everything. You begin to speak even when your voice trembles, to move even when your knees are unsure. You stop waiting for confidence to arrive fully dressed, and instead welcome it as it is, unfinished, imperfect, but alive. Each time you choose action over silence, your voice gains volume, clarity, and purpose. There is power in naming your truth aloud. When you believe in yourself, you stop asking permission to exist as you are. You tell your story without apology, knowing it carries wisdom shaped by survival. You understand that your voice matters not because it is flawless, but because it is yours. In a world that often rewards conformity, self-belief is the courage to speak from your own center. Fear will still knock, but it will no longer move in and rearrange your life. You learn to acknowledge it without surrendering to it. You learn that bravery is not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let it dictate your destiny. With self-belief, you speak even when your words challenge expectations, even when your truth unsettles others. You trust that silence would cost you more than honesty ever could. As your voice grows louder than fear, something else changes. You begin to hear others more clearly too. You no longer compete for space. You create it. You uplift without comparison, encourage without envy, and stand firm without hardening your heart. Your self-belief becomes an invitation, reminding others that they too are allowed to trust their voice. This is how an unstoppable life unfolds, not through dominance, but through authenticity, not through perfection, but through presence. When you believe in yourself, your voice becomes a guide, leading you forward even in uncertainty. And one day, you will look back and realize that fear never left. You simply learned to speak louder, truer, and with a faith in yourself that nothing could take away. The journey becomes unstoppable the moment you stop waiting for validation, because waiting has a way of quietly stealing your time and your truth. For so long, you may have looked outward, hoping for a nod of approval, a sign, a voice that says, "Now you are ready." But readiness does not come from permission. It comes from self-recognition. The day you stop asking others to confirm your worth is the day you reclaim your power. You realize that your life is not an audition, and your soul was never meant to be judged by applause. Validation can feel comforting, but it is also fragile. It rises and falls with opinions, moods, and circumstances beyond your control. When your belief depends on it, you become small in moments when praise is absent. Self-belief, however, is steady. It remains when no one is watching, when no one understands your vision, when your progress is quiet and unseen. It teaches you to stand firm in your own knowing, even when the world is uncertain. There is freedom in no longer explaining yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. When you stop waiting for validation, you move with intention instead of hesitation. You no longer delay your dreams until they seem acceptable to others. You act because something within you says, "This matters." And that inner voice, once trusted, becomes a compass that guides you forward with clarity and courage. This shift does not make you careless or unkind. It makes you honest. You still listen, you still learn, but you no longer surrender your identity to external judgment. You understand that growth often looks lonely before it looks successful. You accept that some people will never see your value simply because they are not meant to walk your path. And that realization no longer wounds you, it frees you. An unstoppable life is built when you choose yourself in moments of doubt, when you create, speak, love, and try without asking if it will be approved, when you allow yourself to be a work in progress without shame. Self-belief reminds you that you are allowed to evolve publicly, imperfectly, and bravely. It replaces hesitation with momentum because you are no longer standing still, waiting to be chosen. As you stop seeking validation, your confidence deepens into something quieter and stronger. You become less reactive and more grounded. You celebrate your progress without comparison. You honor your pace without apology. And in doing so, you discover that peace is not found in being praised, but in being aligned with who you truly are. This is where unstoppable living begins. Not when everyone agrees with you, but when you agree with yourself. Not when the world applauds, but when your heart is at peace with your choices. When you stop waiting for validation, you step fully into your life, carrying your purpose with grace and resolve. And from that place, nothing can truly stop you, because you are no longer moving for approval, you are moving for truth. Self-belief transforms pain into wisdom and wounds into wings. But this transformation does not happen overnight, and it is never effortless. Pain arrives uninvited, leaving marks that feel heavy, raw, and personal. At first, those wounds seem only to weaken you, to slow your steps and cloud your vision. Yet, when you choose to believe in yourself, you stop seeing pain as proof of failure and begin to recognize it as a teacher. Every hurt carries a lesson, and every scar holds a story of endurance that cannot be erased. Wisdom grows when you allow yourself to sit with what hurt you instead of running from it. Self-belief gives you the courage to face your experiences honestly, without bitterness and without denial. You begin to ask not, "Why did this happen to me?" but "What did this teach me about who I am and what I deserve?" In that question, healing begins. Pain that is acknowledged becomes understanding, and understanding becomes strength. Wounds turn into wings when you stop letting them define your limits. There was a time when what hurt you may have made you cautious, guarded, afraid to hope again. But believing in yourself gently reminds you that survival is not the end of the story. You are allowed to rise beyond what wounded you. You are allowed to trust again, to dream again, to reach higher than you did before. Your wings are not built despite your wounds, they are built because of them. Self-belief changes the way you carry your past. Instead of dragging it behind you like a burden, you begin to hold it like a source of wisdom. You learn compassion for yourself and for others, understanding that everyone you meet is carrying something unseen. This compassion does not make you weak, it makes you deeply powerful. It allows you to move through the world with grace, even when memories resurface and old pain whispers your name. There is a quiet confidence that grows when you realize that nothing you endured was wasted. Every tear sharpened your insight, every disappointment refined your values, every heartbreak taught you how deeply you can feel and still survive. Believing in yourself means trusting that you are capable of growth beyond pain, that you are more than what happened to you. It means recognizing that your sensitivity is not a flaw, but a form of strength. As your wounds become wings, you begin to move differently. You take risks with more intention, love with more honesty, and live with more purpose. You no longer fear falling because you know you can rise. You no longer hide your story because you understand its power. Your presence becomes a quiet testimony that healing is possible and that pain does not have the final word. An unstoppable life is not one untouched by suffering, but one shaped by it and lifted beyond it. When you believe in yourself, you allow your pain to mature into wisdom and your wounds to lift you higher than you ever imagined. And in that flight, you discover that what once hurt you has now become the very force that carries you forward. You were never meant to be small, you were meant to stand tall in your truth, even when the world tried to teach you the art of shrinking. From the beginning, there were spaces that asked you to lower your voice, soften your dreams, and make yourself more acceptable, more manageable. You learned, perhaps without realizing it, that being seen could invite judgment, and being heard could invite resistance. Yet deep within you, there has always been a knowing, a quiet insistence that your spirit was not designed to live folded in half. Standing tall in your truth does not mean you are without fear or doubt. It means you refuse to let those things dictate the size of your life. It means honoring your thoughts, your feelings, your boundaries, even when they make others uncomfortable. Truth has a way of demanding courage because it asks you to show up as you are, not as you are expected to be. And believing in yourself gives you the strength to answer that demand with grace instead of apology. There is a particular kind of freedom that comes when you stop editing yourself for acceptance, when you no longer shape your words to fit someone else's comfort or dim your light to avoid standing out. Self-belief reminds you that authenticity is not something to earn, it is something to live. You begin to understand that shrinking never protected you, it only postponed your becoming. Standing tall, on the other hand, allows your life to breathe. Your truth carries your values, your history, your resilience. It is shaped by lessons learned the hard way and dreams that refuse to die quietly. When you stand in it, you reclaim the parts of yourself you once abandoned to survive. You give yourself permission to take up space without guilt, to exist fully without explanation. This is not selfishness, it is self-respect. It is the recognition that your presence matters. There will be moments when standing tall feels lonely, when your truth separates you from familiar spaces and familiar faces. But believing in yourself teaches you that solitude is not the same as isolation. Sometimes it is the space where you finally meet yourself honestly. In that space, you learn that alignment is worth more than approval, and peace is worth more than applause. As you stand taller, your life begins to reflect it. Your choices become clearer, your boundaries firmer, your relationships more honest. You stop bending into shapes that exhaust you. You walk with a steadiness that comes not from certainty, but from self-trust. And even when you stumble, you no longer collapse inward. You rise with dignity, knowing who you are. An unstoppable life is built on this foundation of truth, not loud, not forceful, but unshakable. When you believe in yourself enough to stand tall in your truth, you move through the world with quiet authority. You become a living reminder that fullness is not arrogance, and authenticity is not rebellion. It is simply the brave act of being who you were always meant to be. Believing in yourself is choosing hope even when the road feels uncertain, even when the map you were promised no longer makes sense. Uncertainty has a way of unsettling the spirit. It blurs direction and tests patience. There are moments when the future feels foggy, when every step forward seems like a question rather than an answer. In those moments, hope is not naive optimism. It is a deliberate choice. It is the decision to trust that clarity will come, even if it has not arrived yet. The uncertain road often brings doubt along with it. Doubt asks whether you are capable, whether your dreams are realistic, whether you should turn back to what feels safer. But believing in yourself means understanding that uncertainty is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of growth. Every meaningful journey requires walking into the unknown. Hope becomes the light you carry, not because you see the destination clearly, but because you believe in your ability to reach it. There is quiet strength in continuing forward without guarantees. When you believe in yourself, you learn to sit with unanswered questions without losing faith in your own resilience. You accept that not everything unfolds on your timeline, and not every effort brings immediate reward. Yet you continue because something within you knows that persistence is its own form of wisdom. Hope teaches you patience, and self-belief teaches you endurance. Uncertainty can make the past feel tempting. It whispers that familiar pain is better than unfamiliar possibility. But hope, rooted in self-belief, gently pulls you forward. It reminds you that growth requires risk, and transformation requires trust. You may not know how everything will work out, but you know who you are becoming, and that becomes enough to keep moving. Choosing hope does not mean ignoring fear or pretending confidence is effortless. It means acknowledging fear without letting it steer your life. It means allowing yourself to feel unsure while still believing in your capacity to adapt, to learn, to rise. Self-belief tells you that even if the path changes, you are capable of changing with it. That belief turns uncertainty into a companion rather than an obstacle. As you walk this uncertain road, hope reshapes how you see yourself. You stop measuring progress by speed and start valuing courage. You recognize small victories, the days you didn't give up, the moments you chose faith over frustration. These moments build a quiet confidence, one that doesn't rely on perfect circumstances, but on inner trust. Over time, the road begins to teach you. You discover strength you didn't know you had, patience you didn't know you needed, and wisdom you couldn't have gained any other way. The uncertainty that once frightened you becomes proof that you were brave enough to try. Hope, sustained by self-belief, turns each step into an act of self-respect. An unstoppable life is not built on certainty, it is built on hope. When you believe in yourself enough to keep walking without clear answers, you create momentum that fear cannot stop. You move forward not because the road is easy, but because you trust yourself to walk it. And one day, looking back, you will realize that hope carried you through the uncertainty, and belief in yourself made the journey possible. An unstoppable life begins the day you remember who you truly are, the day you peel back the layers of doubt, expectation, and fear that have been pressed upon you, and you meet yourself again with honesty and grace. So often life asks us to forget ourselves, to perform, to bend, to fit into boxes we never made. But within you is a self that has always existed beyond approval and beyond limitation, a self that has endured storms, felt deeply, and carried dreams that no one else could name. Remembering that self is not an act of vanity, it is an act of liberation. To remember who you truly are is to reconnect with your essence, with the parts of yourself that are unshakable even when the world shakes. It is to remember your courage, the quiet persistence that has carried you through heartbreak and disappointment. It is to remember your voice, the one that has spoken truth even when it trembled, and the one that can rise again, stronger and clearer. When you claim this memory, you stop letting others define your worth, and you begin to define it for yourself. Life has a way of teaching forgetfulness. Criticism, failure, and rejection can convince you that you are smaller than you are, less capable than you are, less deserving than you are. But self-belief calls you back. It whispers in moments of stillness that all the lessons, all the trials, and all the pain have been preparing you for this reclamation. Your experiences are not marks of shame. They are proof that you have endured, that you have survived, that you are capable of more than you have allowed yourself to believe. Remembering yourself is an act of courage because it asks you to stand in truth even when fear beckons you to hide. It asks you to embrace both your light and your shadow, your triumphs and your mistakes, without shame or apology. In doing so, you step into a freedom that cannot be given to you. It can only be claimed. And when you claim it, the life you live becomes unstoppable because it is no longer controlled by external forces, expectations, or doubts. This remembrance also allows you to see the gifts within you that were always present but perhaps overlooked. Your resilience, your empathy, your creativity, your capacity to love, your power to heal and to rise. These are not accidents. They are the core of who you are, waiting for recognition and acknowledgement. As you embrace them, you begin to walk with a quiet authority, a presence that is grounded in certainty and authenticity, and nothing can derail you because you know your own foundation. An unstoppable life unfolds naturally from this remembrance. You begin to take risks that once felt impossible, speak truths that once felt forbidden, and pursue dreams that once felt out of reach. You stop apologizing for your existence and start celebrating it. Every step forward is guided not by fear, not by the need for approval, but by the unwavering knowledge that you are enough, you are capable, and you are worthy. And in this knowing, the life you create cannot be stopped, because it flows from the deepest truth of all. You have remembered who you truly are.